you want them to choose you. You want them to like your side better. But the reality is I'm loading down my kiddo with this burden because honestly, like I'm too cowardice to say it myself.
Thank you for joining us for the Blended Kingdom Families podcast. This podcast is for blended families, the people who love them, and anyone who just wants to improve their marriage and family relationships.
BKF exists to break the cycle of divorce, equip marriages, and unite blended families with the truth of God's Word. It is our hope that today you will receive biblical guidance and practical resources that will bring unity and peace to create your thriving, healthy home. Let's jump in.
Okay. Hey guys, welcome to the BKF podcast. We're excited you're here with us. Scott and Vanessa, we are here with you again, and we have an amazing special guest with us, Dr. Cassie Reid, and we're going to be diving into some cool stuff today. Before we do that, if you haven't already, take an opportunity, like, share, comment, send us an email at info@blendedkingdomfamilies.com. We'd just love to hear from you. And we hope that you really enjoy this episode.
Yes, so you guys, Dr. Reid is back in the house with us.
I'm so happy.
Yes.
So fun.
I know. She is awesome. We love Dr. Reid. You guys probably already know, but just to reintroduce, she's a wife, she's a mom, she's a stepmom. She's also an LPC supervisor. So Dr. Reid actually leads, she's the director of the Marriage and Family Therapy program at the King's University, which is where I go, and I'm currently in my master's. So I get to be taught under her, discipled under her, mentored, and she's amazing, absolutely amazing. And so, and she's also an associate professor of counseling at the King's University as well. And so we're just excited to pick your brain and talk about some juicy stuff.
Okay, it's so good. Welcome. I love it. Well, thanks for having me.
Well, before we dive into it, just so people, two things. One, if you're not as familiar with Dr. Reid, go back to our last episodes because we've really gotten into some cool stuff before. So you can go back, rewatch those. Yeah. Those are super fun. But for those who maybe are just getting introduced to you for the first time, tell us about you, tell us about your family.
Sure.
What do you like to do?
Yeah, I've been married for 16 years, so I am a blended family, which is why I think I'm so passionate about helping y'all and just coming around anytime you ask. So my stepdaughter is 19, and I came into her life when she was 2, meeting my husband, and then we have a 7-year-old together, so blended. They're the cutest sisters. It's like the most fun, because watching her at almost 20 years old and the 7-year-old, they both just have such respect for each other, and it's cute. So I do the Kings, and I am just so blessed to mix the spiritual and the clinical. Like that's really my passion, is to help people stir that together. And I realize like just training counselors is so fun. Like I get to hang out with people like you and just laugh, and we have wild times. Who knows what's going to happen next? And I love that. So. Yeah.
No, it's awesome. No, I love it. And I love just being a part of the program and getting to be around you. There's so much that I've learned, and I get to share a lot of that on here, which is super exciting, and it's really cool. So we're super excited. But I'm excited about today because, if you're watching or listening, you maybe some of you attended the Blended Couples Conference, and that's our conference that we have once a year. We had our second one this past year. And
it's so good.
Yes.
Come if you can. Next time. We had a blast. I thought it was fun.
Well, and Dr. Reid and Scott did a counselor's corner thing. And so you got free counseling. I love it because Dr. Reid's like, give it to me. It's free counseling. But one of the questions that was asked, and we get this question a lot, and we haven't done a podcast on it. Yeah. And so we wanted to talk about that today, but it's, what is the best way to parent and co-parent when one home is full of believers and the other isn't? And I just remember your response to this and coming as a step parent was super powerful. And I know, Scott, you chimed in on it as well. So just kind of want to start there, Dr. Reid, and get your thoughts on that.
No, it's true because, it's interesting because Lundy is my 19-year-old, and her mom, as a woman sort of faith, but how that's demonstrated is so different from how we would walk that out, how we were serving in church, the things we were doing. So, I think it's really just a respect. It's that I'm going to live my life consistently across the board and show you proof and evidence and fruit of what I'm going to do, regardless of what you're going to do. Yeah. And I just think speaking truth into Lundy or any of your kids, I mean, I'm using Lundy as an example, but speaking truth into your kids and letting them know who they are from a spiritual perspective, even if they're not getting that on the other side or anything, it's just really having to put your own biases or beliefs aside, not your beliefs, but your beliefs of what they're not doing or what she's not getting. It's trusting that the Lord's enough.
Yeah.
And that's hard sometimes.
Absolutely.
Well, and there's different levels of this, and I want to kind of just, kind of speak to wherever, if you're listening, the levels that this could be achieved. So I think the most extreme example is one family is a Christian, they living out Christian values, whereas the other family is completely maybe atheist. And they're just like, we actually believe this is not true.
Right.
So that is one super extreme example. And I know,
real.
But very real.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And, and it kind of gradually upsteps from there to the point where you maybe, hey, this Christian home is one of those that, man, we're in church every Sunday. We're in church every Wednesday. This is something we pray every day together. I mean, this is something they live daily. And then the home is maybe like, well, we're a Christian, but, church home's not really our thing.
Yeah.
Or I don't really believe in going to church. So the dynamic, and then, so you have the parents part of this of like, oh, this is what our belief system is. Then you have the children that are involved in this, and they're bouncing from home to home, and they're going, well, okay, I'm going to be over here, so I've got to tell my friends I can't do this on Wednesday night, or I can't stay out late because I'm going to have to go to church Sunday morning, or you can't stay over at our house because we're going to church in the morning, something of that nature. So the kids kind of bouncing forth, and they're going, okay, how do I navigate this?
Yeah.
So let's just talk from a kid's perspective, not from a parent. From a child perspective, how can we pour into them and say, hey, this is how you navigate that?
Oh, that's a great question, because I think I personally seen that in practice, but also seen that in Lundy of what's the right thing to say. And I think if I can tell a real blunt, honest story, I remember this time we were in church with Lundy, and I remember she raised her hands, and I kind of saw her worshiping the Lord, And it was almost just frustration came over me because I knew that it was fake.
Yeah.
Well, I was judging that, but it was the principle of I was frustrated with her for not manifesting her spirituality the way I thought she should. And the Lord convicted me so hard that day because it was well, first you're judging, period. I was wrong.
Yeah.
But then also it's I can't have an expectation for that in the sense of behavior and all of that, right? I want to watch her walk out her own faith her own way. So it's supporting that. It's saying, I'm going to lay a foundation. But I think with littler kids, calendars are always good. Understanding, they are brilliant.
Yeah.
Kids are brilliant even at 1, 2 years old. People think, oh, no, they don't know. They do.
Yeah.
They know how to differentiate. You think about this. Kids know when you're home or when he's home, right? Your kids know. Emmy knows. Who's the softie? That's me.
Who is this? I'm the softie?
He's the softie.
Oh,
yeah.
Total softie.
So they know that, right?
Yeah.
They know how to discern that between you.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with spirituality. I think they learn how to discern and teaching them to trust their gut, which is my motto, but it's what feels right to you? What feels the best to you? I'm going to present you with truth. And just like I would anyone else, how are you going to take that? Are you going to take that?
Yeah.
But I think setting them up a schedule, setting them up the understanding of we do this on Wednesday and Friday. This is a kind of a standard for our house.
Yeah.
This is what we do. And as long as you're with us, this is what you're going to do with us. And we love for you to be with us and, kind of making it exciting. But I think understanding their little hearts and the confusion and making open space to talk about that. I see so many parents who, judge that too. It's oh, well, they don't know. They're doing over there. They're Presbyterian or they're and you're basically, it's judgment.
Yeah.
You're judging their religion and the way they do things. Whether you believe it or not, that's unhealthy for kids.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And I think they pick up on that. I mean, I remember just being completely transparent and vulnerable when we were in a really rough season. I remember thinking, I'm oh, they don't go to church. They don't. Well, then come to find out, after I'm having conversation with Michael, he's oh yeah, my dad got baptized, and I had no idea. And I'm man, God is working in their family. And I had this preconceived notion, or again, a judgment of, oh, they're not doing this or they're not doing that. And, you know, because it was very important for us that Michael was in church every Sunday, and we had communicated that to them. We had said, hey, if you can't take him, we will come pick him up on your weekend and take him. But just through conversation, man, I was so convicted by that. And I was like, well, little do I know, but you know, the Lord was really working in their family and doing some things. So, I mean, I love that you said that, because I think it's something that we all do, especially like biological to step parent, or, you know, step parent to biological, or you know, whatever that is.
Well, and we talk, you know, it's funny how certain topics kind of span into other things. And, you know, we've talked about parent alienation and manipulation a lot on our podcast, but we don't ever relate it to, okay, let's relate it to Christianity. And this is what I mean by that. And I'll talk about the judgment side of this. And as parents, we have a vulnerability to judge. And remember, the child's in the middle.
Yeah.
And so they're getting the ping pong effect of, okay, I'm getting this is what they're telling me here, and this is what they're telling me here. But imagine the parent alienation and the manipulation coming into play here. So when you drop little hints like, well, if you were here, you know, you'd probably be a little bit happier, because we go to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
And I can't believe they said that to you, because that's just not right.
Right.
And not only is it not right, they're wrong. And so there's this idea of kind of looking down your nose going, okay, I'm going to be the judge and jury here and tell them that they're wrong, other than just saying, hey, you know, they may not believe the same things we do, but we love them anyway.
Right.
And over here, we're going to do this. And I understand that may be a little different, but we're still going to do this. And we encourage you, if you know, especially as you get older into your teenage years and you're driving, that you can do that as well.
Right.
But not being the judgmental parent and not positioning them to say, hey, you cannot have a relationship with your other parent because they don't believe the way we do.
Yeah. No, it's so true. You know, so many parents in that situation just really stink at clear communication, because what you're doing, and kind of how I envision it in my mind, is like you have, you know, the kiddo has this basket, and every time you're doing that, you're loading them down with your stuff and then asking them to carry it into the other place, because you're saying that because you sort of want them to say that, right? You want them to choose you. You want them to like your side better. But the reality is, I'm loading down my kiddo with this burden, because honestly, like, I'm too cowardice to say it myself.
It's good.
And it hurts, because it's like, I think about the times I would do that. Like, when you say that, I'm kind of like, oh gosh, my poor, I just want to call my stepdaughter right now and be like, I love you so much, I'm so sorry. You know, it's like, and we've had great conversations since then, but it's like, not wanting to make her carry things because of my own insecurity.
That's good.
Because it's really me that feels insecure and doesn't want to address it.
Yeah.
Where, like you said, I didn't know. You were being baptized and having a whole revival. And I was none the wiser.
Well, and I'm going to take it to another more personal level, because we're just kind of stepping this along. But even as, you know, children get exposed to, you know, Christianity, and they get exposed to Jesus, and maybe that's exposure at your house. Now I want you to play this situation out. The child comes back and, you know, goes to the other home and says, hey, I'm really thinking about getting baptized. And the other parent says, absolutely not. You don't need to do that. And they come to you and they say, well, I'd really like to be baptized. So how do you as a parent navigate that? You know, and again, what we're trying to do, especially as we roll into that phase of life, is we're trying to teach our children to make the decisions.
Right.
We're trying to, you know, especially as a decision to follow Christ, we say, hey, this needs to be a personal decision for you. So it's this odd situation where you're kind of going, okay, I'm going to back up. And I'm going to kind of put this on that child to say, what do you think is the best situation for you?
Well, and I think that's the thing, is honoring their choice.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, you have to maybe take it out of this context, and that helps my brain a little, but it's like, if Johnny wants to play soccer, and you're super stoked about him playing soccer, and, you know, dad isn't down or mom isn't down with that, it's like, Johnny's wishes are Johnny's wishes, and we have to figure out how to honor those. And it's always like, I want to say this, it's so sassy, but it's like, we're not married for a reason, and this is probably one of them, religion. You know what I mean? Like, that could be a very big thing as to why people are maybe not together anymore. But I think it's figuring out how to honor the kid and honoring what they want, what they feel, what they sense, what they want to do. I remember though, it was a beautiful moment when Lundy got baptized because her mom came.
Yeah.
And it was just this neat process of like, we didn't sit together. We weren't there at that point, but it's like, she was there and supporting her. And it just meant a lot, I think, for every time we all were in the same room. And I just hear kids who talk about that, who are like, well, my dad couldn't go, my mom couldn't go, my dad didn't like that, my mom couldn't like that. And so I just think it's encouraging that other parent is to say, hey, listen, like, this isn't about me winning.
Yeah.
And I encourage you just to talk to our kiddo and ask them about it, because I'm not prompting this. And you know, most churches now, I find their children's ministry does an amazing job of being sure. It's not the mom being like, no, you go down front today and you give your life to the Lord. You know, it's like they talk to the kids, they make sure they know what they're doing. They walk them through that. My 7-year-old was baptized this summer, and it was like great to see the process. It's like you're making sure that these kids aren't just walking out a parent. It's not one more way to get a win in your column when it comes to the blended family thing, you know?
Absolutely. You know, and it made me think of like, I think sometimes it's almost like we invite a spirit of religion into our home when we're saying you have to do it X, Y, Z. And I remember I grew up, my stepdad, my dad, you know, Southern Baptist, my grandfather was a Southern Baptist preacher. And I remember calling and asking him about tongues and speaking in tongues. And he was just like, yeah, we don't talk about, that's no. And I'm like, but Dad, it's all in the book of Acts. And he's, you know, but there was a point, and I remember being in the car and I remember realizing like, I've been believing what my parents have been believing, but the Holy Spirit was taking me on this journey with him of like, there is so much more here, you know, and I think we can do that to our children sometimes too, like being brought up like that. No, it's supposed to be this way. But when we can, again, you know, swallow our pride or whatever you know, however you want to say it, but sit back and be like, you know what, this is your decision, and how can we help foster you in this process? And you make that decision. I remember, when you were talking about Lindy, it made me think of Michael. I remember when Michael made that decision, I was like, and I'm going to be frank, I was hell-bent because I was like, I'm going to baptize him. I had always wanted to baptize him. I was like, I'm going to do this. And I remember his dad wanted to too. But then we were like, hey, how would you like, what does this look like to you? What would you like for this to look like? And he's like, I want the pastor to baptize me. And I was like, okay. And we were all there together.
Okay, like, okay.
Yeah, it was like, it looks
like
nice now. But then you were probably like, I'm gritting my teeth.
Yeah. I mean, it was, you know, and it was tough because I just, that was something as a mom I always wanted to do. But you know what? That was Michael's journey. That was his, you know what, Mom, this is what this looks like for me. This is what I want it to be. And that day too, his stepmom and his dad, we all were worship. We had just come out of our litigation season. Let me tell you, like, God can perform miracles because we hadn't even finished mediation yet. And they came to the church. We were worshiping together, and then got to watch Michael get baptized. And so, I mean, God, so many amazing things. But again, just letting them make that decision. But how can we foster and support them in that?
Yeah. And I'll say one other thing here, you know, and this is the part that because I love what you said about the winning part, because I know this is a real thing with blended families, is if the child,
I know, it's so hard, like,
if, you know, John decides that he's going to get baptized and that's going to happen, I think there is a part of the maybe the family that is, you know, has been pouring into them and be like, oh my gosh, we won. Woohoo! Congratulations. There now is a victor in this situation. I am 1 and you are 2, and there's a winner. So let me challenge you on this. Number 1, you didn't win, God won. And he knew he was going to win all along. And so if you're in that situation, or if your kids are moving down that, don't let your pride jump in here and go, okay, we're the winners, we're the victors. And then the second part of that, I would say, is watch through that decision, watch the mending of blended families. Because I have seen also families who are completely atheists have the love of a child come into the love of Jesus and watch him change their lives. And that's extremely possible. So I just want to give that as kind of an encouragement, because I know there are families out there that are like, man, I am beating my head up against the door, being called every name in the book, because I just want to go to church
Yeah.
with my child, and my ex-spouse does not believe that. And so, and that may be the temporary season that you're in, but that won't be the season you're in.
Yes,
for
that's
long.
true. Well, eventually they're old enough to decide.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Reid, we're coming to a close, but, being a stepmom and a part of a blended family, anyone that's listening, watching right now, what just nugget of wisdom, is there something on your heart that you would just want to speak to families? Anyone who's listening right now and maybe just really struggling with this and has struggled with this in their blended family.
I think, oh man, that's a lot. There's a lot I think I could say. But now that Lundy's 19, I don't think that there's ever a time, like when she was 2, 3, 4, and I was in the thick of it, just really still raw and real and just married, and they were just divorced, and all the things happening. Yeah. And it's like, she's an amazing person. And I love her so much, her creativity and the things that she's about, that I think I got caught up in the winning sometimes, and I miss knowing her. And I just love who she is. I mean, I love that I know her now, and I can see her, and I could go shop for her, or just stuff knowing her now. It's I don't regret, but I think, how often was she not a person to me, that it did become a win. And it was about me having an extension of myself through her, where really I am an independent person and so is she. And not having that be a reflection. She's not a reflection of me per se, right?
Yeah.
She's her own person. And yes, am I going to raise her? Am I going to do the best of my ability? And am I going to try to have it be matching my morals and values? Of course. But she is wise and smart, and she was presented with a lot of truth, and she's able to choose now.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see her be independent and adult.
Yeah.
Weird, but good.
Yeah.
Love that. Man, that's so good. That even because Michael, he's getting ready to go to college.
I know.
So it makes me think of, you're absolutely right. I mean, we can pour into them as much as we can, but just trusting and surrendering them to God every day, because they're His first before ours. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Definitely thanks to Dr. Reid for being
thanks
here
for having
and
me.
sharing her wisdom. We hope that this episode is encouraging to you, because if you're in this battle and if you're in this fight, we just want you to be encouraged and understand that there's a bigger picture playing out here.
Yeah.
So, guys, thanks so much for being with us today. If you can, again, like, share, comment, subscribe. We'd love to notify you every single week when we drop a new podcast. You guys take care.
Be blessed in all that you do.
Hey guys, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
And you can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we hang out with more amazing podcast guests. And remember, nothing will be impossible with God.